Hey everyone, how you doing? Good? That's great. Welcome to this week's episode of our podcast. It's called Is Breakfast Included? By the time you hear this, the first leg of the DD North American tour will be over. I'll be home, but today I'm in Atlanta. I'm recording this. On the show this week, before I get into it, man, this has been such a great tour. I think we have the best crew that this organization has ever had in the 13 years that I've been with them. Everyone's getting along. Everyone's having a good time. The shows have been great. The fans have been great. Bastille killed it. Chic, do I have to say that they killed it? No, they did. Anyway, I just wanted to thank anyone who came out, anyone who I saw wearing an Is Breakfast Included shirt. Thank you, thank you, thank you. On the show this week, my good friend Stephen McSwain. Stephen McSwain makes McSwain guitars. You can check them out at McSwainguitars.com. They're amazing. I met him this past April at NAMM, and we just hit it off. It's like two old friends just started talking after years of being separated. It's weird when you meet someone like that you feel like you've known him all your life. Another thing about Steven, why I talk to him is he makes this amazing jewelry, these McScully rings. He makes pendants. He makes bracelets, everything. Check him out, McSwainguitars.com. We talked about how he got his first guitar in the hands of Steve Vai and everyone that followed after that. A couple of big names. He's going to talk to you about it. We're going to talk about the jewelry. Anyway, I love this guy. We've been talking ever since we hung out in Portland almost every day. All right, man, let's check it out. Tell everyone who you are.
I am Stephen McSwain of McSwain Guitars.
And where are you based?
I'm based out of Portland, Oregon. I relocated here from Los Angeles in 2014, originally from North Carolina.
Right on. You dig it?
Yeah. Oh man, I love it. Especially right now, the weather is just money. I mean, it's like that mid 70s, crystal clear skies, nice cool breeze. And so it's just, it gets a little rough during the winter, when you got you're about 6 months in on some just gray rain, day after day. And you're like, so that's why we don't go anywhere during the summer. So it's like perfect, but we love it. We love it. It's
right
awesome.
On, man. Yeah. We were just in Texas and it's really hot there already.
Yeah. Well, you grew up there, right?
Yeah. It's just hot. Like I'm not used to it anymore.
Seriously, I'll go back to Los Angeles periodically. I'm like, anything over 85, I'm like, man, I become such a wimp with weather. It's like brutal.
Yeah, I'm out in it for about 30 minutes and then I got to go take a nap. Like it takes it out.
Yeah. Well, I wish I could just take a nap regardless, It's like, but
right.
if I'm not out here making sawdust, it's not happening. So.
Right on, man. Well, how long have you been building guitars? What did you do before you built guitars?
Oh gosh. I graduated from college in 91 from Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina. And I was actually telling the story yesterday. I immediately, I was a political science major, had no intentions or no desire to go into politics or get a law degree or anything like that. So I ended up getting a job with a medical supply company, literally the Monday after I graduated on a Saturday. And a week later, I found myself in St. Petersburg, Florida, training for this job. And so I did that for a couple years, and I hated it. They gave me my hometown as my territory. So, I've always looked young for my age, but I was there, and I'm trying to call on my buddies' parents who were doctors, trying to sell them an $80,000 blood chemistry analyzer. And they're like, all right, kid, I remember when I busted you and my kid, drinking beer and TP in houses and stuff. So I'll buy a box of Band-Aids, get out.
Right.
But I went from that to a steel company and was in sales there. And I had started building guitars literally right after I got back to my hometown. I moved back in with my parents for a couple months till I found a place to live. And they were always really nurturing as far as music and arts and things like that. So they had given me a Dremel tool when I was a kid. And I just pulled it out when I was there. After work, I'd go home and be like, well, nobody's around. I got nothing to do. So I'm just going to buy a guitar body, which I bought a Warmoth Super Strat style, and
Uh-huh.
literally started carving faces into it. And that was kind of a side gig. And, I just kept doing it and kept doing it and would weasel my way backstage at shows that would come through town. And it just kind of built from there. Steve Vai, I actually sent that first guitar body to Steve Vai, and he dug it. So that was instant cred, right there. So I would go, I was talking to Alice in Chains on the Dirt tour, and they're like, "Well, who have you built guitars for?" And I was like, "Well, Steve Vai has my first one." I'm like, oh, okay. So ended up selling them to, for next
Yeah.
to nothing, and it just kind of took off from there. I mean, I was kind of, one foot in the corporate world and one foot in the fun, dream world of building guitars as a career. And I was at the NAMM show, and a Japanese distribution company bought 10 guitars, which was more than my year's salary. And I'm like, all right, here we go. And made the decision to quit and just never look back. And that was in, I think, 96, something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that was a long answer, but that's kind
No,
of
no, no.
in a nutshell.
Were you in bands or anything growing up? Did you play
I
guitar?
I did. I played guitar, but I never really had anything put together as a kid. Like in high school, my first band was in college. I was I've always been the world's most okayest guitar player, and it's like I can bang out some power chords, and but I've always been a singer, so I would sing and play my acoustic. And my buddy of mine on my freshman hall saw me carrying in a guitar case. He's like, "Dude, you play guitar? We got to put together a band." And my parents were like, what?" It's like, "You're here to study, kid." So we put together a band, and we had the only band at college for, you know, more or less 3 or 4 years, and it was just awesome. We'd play like fraternity and sorority parties, play local bars, and it was all cover stuff, but
Yeah,
we had
yeah.
a blast. It was super fun. So
Right on, man.
yeah.
So once you dove into the guitar building world, um, like you had instant credibility from Alice in Chains, Steve Vai. Uh,
Yeah.
who was the next? Did you just start building guitars and going backstage, showing them off, or how did that work?
Yes, sometimes it was a mix of both. I mean, I was really, really lucky that I got that first guitar to Steve Vai, and that's a whole story in itself. My business partner, Steve Hall, who lives in the Seattle area, he was a guitar player in our college band, and we were like best buds, and he went to NAMM in 90 or 89, I think, with his local music store from South Carolina, and was waiting to get Steve's autograph, and overheard Steve giving out his private number to one of his buddies he hadn't seen. So of course, my buddy remembered it and wrote it down, and he called him when he got back to college, and Steve sent him a copy of Flexible Leftovers, and
Hmm.
so I remembered that. I graduated like a year or two later, and I remembered that he had gotten in touch with Steve Vai, and I'm like, "Oh my God, if I get this guitar to Steve, it'd be just insane. Maybe it would, get me some credibility." And so I called the number. Steve answered, and he's like, "Who's this?" And I'm like, "Oh, this is Stephen McSwain." And he goes, "How'd you get this number?" I was like, "Oh, you gave it to me at NAMM." Oh, anyway, so, I just kind of glossed over it and explained to him what I had. And he goes, "Okay, well, send it to me." And so I sent it out, and a couple weeks later, he calls me and said he really dug it, and it was just the body. So he ended up putting it together with my buddy who actually worked for Ibanez Custom Shop at the time, Matty Barato, who is,
Hmm.
I don't know if you know Matty. He teched for Sugar Ray for a bit, and a bunch of other bands, and he's an incredible guitar builder, and just he builds these sig fiddles made out of cigar boxes and stuff. But Matty put it together, and that was just it, man. It was like I parlayed that into, every time a show would come through town, I would have the production numbers, and I would call and say, "Hey, I'm a local guitar builder. I'd love to bring some stuff down and show you." And I mean, as you're on the road, you have a lot of downtime, and if you can, talk a good game, you can sometimes get some action. So,
Yeah.
I would get back, and either I would have one that was partially built or one that was built, and I could take it and show them, and they would be like, "Oh, cool. Well, I want this. can you do this kind of thing? I'll be like, yeah, absolutely. So I would just take their ideas and run with it.
How how successful was that, the cold calling? It's happened to me a couple of times. I've gotten
Yeah.
an email from a cold call to management, and they're like, "Hey, this guy wants to come by and show a bass or a guitar," and so I have to reach out to him and
Yeah.
set it up. And I know what I have to say? Like, "Hey, I can't
Right.
guarantee you anything. I got to look at
Sure.
it's kind of got to go through me, and
Yeah.
then I'll see if you know." Did
Well,
you get a lot of
that's a,
that?
I'll actually turn that question around on you. When a guy like me reaches out, you're like, what's your vetting process? Because I'm always fascinated. Now that I've been in this for so long, it's like, I would have been like, beat it, kid, So, I mean, how do you handle that? That's so
Man,
interesting.
it's happened a couple of times. The first time it ever happened to me, I'd like to say I was still green, but I was already on this gig that we know.
Yeah.
Um, but the guy reached out to management. They sent my guy the email. He in turn texted me and said, "This guy's going to come by to bring a bass. He wants to show us, talk to him."
Yeah.
And there was no like hang around. And he brought
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
a couple of basses. They were really nice.
Yeah.
They played well. Um, he seemed this, there was, I heard the afternoon that he was coming. So there was no vetting, no going on social
Oh,
media
yeah.
to see if he wore people's human skin or anything. There was
I've been
none
known
of
to do that maybe once or twice.
there was none of that. So he showed up. He was a great guy. We talked. He stuck around, and then he said, do you? I said, I'm gonna leave the bases back here. We're gonna go out there. I'm gonna let him look at them, and then let him decide if he wants me to bring you back.
Yeah.
And it happened. He liked the bases, but he didn't like the color. So
Yeah.
he said, "Can you do this?" So we sent the bases back, and a few weeks, maybe a month later, we got one that we liked in a color that he wanted.
Nice.
And he still plays those basses. He doesn't play them on stage, but he likes them. They were well made basses.
That's
I don't,
cool.
and that's what happens. So now that social media is so prevalent, that I have to look and go. I get hit up a lot now directly
I'm
with social
sure.
media,
Yeah.
and I'll either I try not to ignore it and come off as a prick, but sometimes you just have
Yeah,
to ignore it because
I don't think it's possible for you to come off as a prick, Bernie. You're one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life, dude. You're so genuine.
thank you, man. But sometimes I'll have to ignore them because you see right through that. Oh, they
Of
just want to
course.
meet them, or they just
Yep.
want,
Yep.
and we're very. The guy I work for is very. He won't just take something free because it's free.
Sure.
He'd rather
That's
just pay
so
for
great,
it.
man.
He'd
Yeah.
rather pay for it so there's no obligation, you know?
Right.
Or if it's something that's gifted to him, it's got to be something. We've returned a lot of shit.
Yeah. No, I
It's
get it,
it's
man.
been
And that's
given to us. Like we've returned stuff, and
yeah.
so
Well, and that's a thing at which it goes back to your question. Um, getting to, well, this is before social media or even internet was really up and running. I mean, that
yeah,
shows my age, but I would call. There was no way to vet. It was just kind of like they had time, or basically just a elevator pitch. When you get on the phone with these guys, and
yeah,
like a guy like you, and it's like, hey, and I've always been really lucky that I've been very perceptive of, if somebody's not into it, I don't push,
yeah,
and I'm not, I can read somebody and tell if they're into it and if they're genuinely want to see something. And, I go from there, and I've been real lucky that I've been able to kind of feel the vibes of that, and not really push it. And I'm sure somebody would beg to differ at some point, say that,
yeah,
you know, but no, I would get in touch with, a guy like you, and then just roll down. And it's so funny because, you know, a lot of times with venues, you have your security in the parking lot and trying to get through all that. And that chain of communication is not always there. it's gotten better now because, we'll call and you get your
Yeah.
tickets or whatever, or you show up and your name's there at the front. But I kind of had to navigate a lot of those where the guys are like, who are you? And I found that if I looked like I was really happy to be there, then I would immediately get turned away. And if I looked like I was pissed and didn't want to be there and was just working, that they would let me right through. So, which is pretty funny, but yeah, man, it just, I mean, time after time after time, it was just, I don't know if it was dumb obstinance that kept me on it. Cause there were a lot of times where it's like, yeah, not interested, or, maybe, we'll call you back. You don't hear anything. And then, yeah, sure. Come on down,
Yeah.
so, I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag of it all.
Do you ever get guys that just want a free guitar?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just like,
And the best thing, my wife Robin, she's so funny because she's no BS, man. And you met her, and she's just awesome. Because Slash, is a client and has bought everything he's gotten from me, and she's like, well, if somebody asks you for something, it's always, man, you get so much exposure out of this. You're like, well, how would Slash feel if he found out I gave you a guitar and he paid full freight for his? So it's good. That was Robin's idea, and that kind of negates that whole situation right there. So
right on, right on. Are there cats out there that you pursue and you would say like, hey, I built you this guitar, I'd like to gift it to you to play it? Or is it all a business?
it's really hard because it's just me. I mean, you've seen my small little operation here, and it's like kind of sort of hand to mouth. It's like if I'm working on a guitar for a month and it doesn't sell, then that's a month that I'm behind, So the only one I've ever really gifted to anyone, actually two, was Steve Vai got the first one, and then Butch Walker, if you know Butch, like amazing musician,
producer,
just had a band called Marvelous Three, which they're actually, they're doing
I'm not a fan, Steve.
That's hysterical. Well,
Butch Walker from Atlanta, Marvelous Three.
Exactly. That's hysterical. Well, his house burned in Malibu, and he lost a ton of guitars. And I was like, I can't even imagine how traumatic that must have been. And so Tommy Lee was a buddy, and Tommy, I reached out to him. I was like, do you know how to get in touch with Butch? I want to give him this most recent guitar that I had made. And so he put me in touch with Butch, and Butch came by and got it. And he was like, really appreciative. And it just was something I'm like, you know what, I just want to put this goodwill back out into the world. And something terrible like that happens to somebody and they lose all of these just incredible guitars. And, not like he was in need of, anything, but I just wanted to do it because I appreciated his musicianship, and it just was something that kind of spoke to me. And it's funny because he sent me pictures of it the other day because I was asking him about it. I'm like, I don't have any pictures of it. I can't find any. So he had one of his guys at his studio take some pictures and send it to me. But other than that, there's been other than that, I think I've sold everything I've built, whether it was for discount or whatever, or like artist kind of deal sort of thing. But, I want to, look into some promo stuff of either some big companies like that, or if, you send one out with somebody, say like Aerosmith's doing their farewell tour, would be kind of cool to have something like that on such an iconic last tour. And it could be a good marketing thing, So it's just such a fine line because, like I said, if it's not selling, then that puts me kind of back a month,
Yeah. Well, you can answer this right now, or you can just say, you can plead the fifth. Plead the fifth. Have you ever noticed that, the guys at the top of the ladder, cats like Slash, we'll just say Slash, we'll use him as an example, like they don't mind buying a good instrument.
Nope.
Especially if you use their ideas and but it's always the cats that that are not at the and they're like, man, it's good promo. We're going on this tour, and then
get it.
And then in a
It's
month later, you see him in a Gibson ad, you know?
Yeah, I know. I know those guys, and I've met those guys, and I get it, man. It's a lot of times when you're at the level of like a Slash or somebody like that, and they like exactly like you said, your boss. It's like I don't want to have the obligation of accepting this. I would rather just pay for it, and I think that's sort of the freedom of it, and they
Hmm.
have the means to be able to do that. And it's amazing when somebody of that stature supports what I do. It's just I'm blown away every single time. I'm actually anybody who regardless if it's some dude down the street who supports me and buys one of my guitars. But I have found that it's those sort of B and C level that are like, yeah, man, I'll get you promo. And I'm like, well, promo doesn't pay the light bill, man. So, but I get it. It's like everybody's kind of angling, and I mean, hell, I've angled my entire life, so it's
Yeah.
like but
Well, yeah, it's when I approach a company about something, my first right out of the bag, I'm like, we don't want anything free. You
yeah,
know, we'd like to buy it, but we'd like to buy this many and so forth. Because I feel like, and I never say I speak for him, but I'm like, I don't want to obligate him to that.
of
Okay, I got to
course,
stand in line at NAM and sign a million autographs, or I got to, pose with it and say a quote, come up with a quote. Like, I'd rather him just like the gear or
yeah,
not like it, you know?
yeah, no,
When you
totally.
buy something, it doesn't obligate you to even play it.
Oh, of course, exactly. And I think that's the safety valve, instead of feeling like you have to do all that due diligence of, the third ring of hell of Nam. So no, I it's a love hate. I dig Nam, but man, it's just a grind.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. Man, you've got your own style. Like there in these days, there's so many, I guess the word we're looking for is boutique guitar makers
Right.
or independent guitar makers. And there's a few out there that are really good. Rock and Roll Relics, Sully Guitars.
Yeah.
They've all got their own thing. You've got your own thing, which I find really appealing to my
Thanks,
aesthetic.
man. Thanks, buddy.
The metal work thing. Like, is
Yeah.
that something from the get go that you had in mind, or something you worked?
No, it was actually an evolution. Like I was saying, with the first guitar that I ever did, I had the Dremel tool, and I used to carve little things as a kid. But I was so ADD, I didn't have the patience to finish anything. So this one, as maturity goes, you sit down and you work on it little bit by little bit, and finally it's done. And so, but I did a lot of hand carved things where, with hands and faces and skulls and different designs like that. And then I realized that, there's a million Strat style guitars, shapes, that kind of thing. So I'm like, I want to come up with my own thing. And so I started sketching some things out based on kind of classic designs that I like, but tweaked it enough to where it was different from anything that I had really seen, and of course, getting a headstock shape is so difficult because, that's the trademark. That's what
Yeah.
people recognize a guitar by, whether it's a Gibson, whether it's a Fender, or whatever. So I did, came up with my own headstock shape very early on to go with the body. And so um, it just evolved from the carve thing then into like my shape with the carvings. And then when I had moved to Los Angeles in '98, I met Mike Tempesta, who played with Powerman 5000, who's such a good dude, and he was a Schecter endorsee. And so we hooked up at Schecter, and he's like, "Can you do a metal top?" And I think he had seen one that Billy Gibbons had, and had some sort of pressure gauge in it. So I ended up getting some metal and adhering it to his signature model. And we did like 10 of those, and he signed them, I signed them, and then they sold them as like, really cool one-offs. And I was like, wow, this is cool. I could use different kinds of metals. And in the San Fernando Valley, North Hollywood area, there's a couple of aircraft surplus, basically junkyards. And I would go there and find all these cool old VU meters and things that made it look like a kind of 20,000 leagues under the sea kind of design.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just, adhere those to the top of the wooden guitar. And that's kind of where the whole metal thing started. And then I just sort of tweaked it to different designs. And it became kind of one of the only, the main style of guitar that I do now, and I mean, that's probably I would say at least 75% of the designs that I do are the metal tops. So
Right on. Were you very artistic growing up? Like, did you have a lot
oh
of
yeah.
art background?
Yeah,
Because I've
it was
seen your
interesting.
carving guitars, the carved
Yeah,
guitars, and they're
yeah,
super intricate.
yeah. It's kind of nuts. It's like my mother has always been an artist. She painted, she sewed, she sculpted a little bit, and then my whole family. My dad's very musical. My brother was a music major in college. My sister, we're all just a very musical family, and was always around us. And so I think I got the best of both worlds of that. I had an amazing choral program in high school where, we traveled to Germany and Austria and sang in competitions and things like that. And so I was classically trained as a first tenor as a kid. And so that was the musical part of it, which was, next level. I mean, it was unbelievable to get that opportunity
Mm-hmm.
as a kid. And then to have the art side of it, at home. I didn't really take anything in school. I just kind of did it on my own. So I didn't really have any kind of formal training there. It was just sort of trial and error, and
Yeah.
lot of error, but
How many errors did you make in that first guitar?
let's see. Well, I would like to say a few, but I know some of them. Some of the pieces, you would look at it and be like, "Gosh, it's not what I'm looking for." But fortunately, I was able, like, if something went kind of sideways, I would always be able to kind of like fix it or change course and turn it into something else. So
Yeah. And by the looks of your guitars and the accessories, like the knobs and so forth, did you have any training with metalworks, or is that?
well, it was a buddy of mine has a company called Starling Gear, and he was moving to Portland, and we had done from LA, and we had done a lot of collaborative stuff together. And I started working in his shop and kind of working on the lost wax casting stuff, and he showed me how to do things, and it was sort of a side hustle to my guitars, but it also worked hand in glove with that because I started doing the knobs and things like that, and kind of learned that whole process through it. So that's where it was sort of, boots on the ground training, and, learned how to do that while I was actually working. So,
Mhm.
which was an incredible opportunity. And it's just so fun, man. It just adds so much to what I already do. It just complements it. So it
Yeah.
makes me happy that I was able to have that opportunity.
Right on. Well, like I said, when you were showing me all that stuff, I was pretty blown away. I'm very ignorant to that type of work. So when you were showing me, I was just nodding my head, going, "Yep, mm-hmm, yeah."
Oh, good. I thought you were bored. No.
No, 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 no. Uh, no, it was really cool, and to see some of your work up close, like I've seen pictures of it, but to see it in its rawest form before it
Yeah.
becomes what it becomes. Other than Steve Vai slash man, have you ever built a guitar for someone that just really blew you away? I mean, those two names alone would blow,
Yeah.
like
Well,
it.
it's funny, man. It's like I never at first I really sought out like the names because I knew from a marketing standpoint that just puts you ahead of everybody. Like if you have this roster of people who have your guitars, it's just, it's instant legitimization. And I think the more people you have, it shows that there is some value to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I did I modded one of John Five's signature tellies with a metal face. Um, I did a signature model for Steve Jones. We only did a couple of them, but same thing. I reached out. When I lived in Los Angeles, he had a radio show on. I think it was, I can't remember which station, but called Jonesy's Jukebox.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's an hour where he would play all this killer music and have different guests. And I emailed him at the radio station. I'm like, hey, listen, I'd love to do like a signature line and I'll pay you a percentage. And he's like, oh, I'll come by. And he lived literally one canyon over from me. So here's Steve Jones in my little house. I'm like, this is nuts. It was a famous Sex Pistol. And we're talking about doing guitars. And we've actually maintained a friendship to this day. We don't get to talk that much, but he, I did a couple. I did one for him, and he played it some with Billy Idol and stuff. But it just never really took off. I've done stuff. I did a couple for Jared Leto, 30 Seconds to Mars. Those kind of Explorer style guitars that he has. I did those. I did a bunch of stuff for ESP for George Lynch, and then George and I became buddies. And when I was in LA, he would come by and I would help him like work on some of his guitars and paint, and things like that. So George is awesome. He's always been super cool.
Because he builds his own, right?
He does. He has
skull.
the Mr. Scary. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So he'll have those CNC'd and he would come over and we would paint them, in my garage, and I kind of showed him how I did it. And he kind of formed his own way of doing it. And it's, it was really cool, getting to hang out with him and getting to know him. He's a great guy. Oh my gosh, man. Scotty had one of the Zombie guitars, that we did. I did it in collaboration with him. Man, I'm kind of drawing a blank. There's so many different people I've done stuff for. I'm kind of blanking out. One guy, one of the areas I haven't really tapped into is the country market. And I remember you were, one of your podcasts, you were talking about Alabama, the band Alabama for a minute. And I did a guitar years and years ago for Jeff Cook. He unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but I met him when they were coming through Charlotte at one point. And I, again, weaseled my way backstage, and Jeff was super kind and gracious and asked me to do a Star Trek theme guitar. And so that was sort of the carved thing with the Enterprise carved into the top of it. And that was a pretty cool one. And so, I tell you, that's one of the areas I haven't really gotten to delve into, but we'll see one day, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I met you back in April, and I think I walked up to just cold call. I came up, just like started asking you questions, but we've maintained a pretty good relation. I'd like to say we're good friends now.
Oh, dude, it's funny, we've only known each other for a couple months, but when you meet somebody that's like-minded and you just get them, man. And it's like your old soul, brother. And I appreciate your friendship.
Well, likewise, what I've noticed about you is you've also maintained a relationship with a lot of your clients. Like they sense that you got a good heart and you're a good person. You're not trying to hustle somebody. You're not trying to hustle someone.
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to the whole thing of, I try to be genuine and show people the respect that they deserve. And, I never want to step on anybody's toes. And I'm real careful about asking for stuff, and that, I think that has boded well for my friendships and the longevity of those friendships. Cause hey man, can you send me a picture of this? Can you do this and this? If they're coming through Portland, I'll ask them if they can, get together, or if there's some tickets or something, which is kind of nice. But
you were telling me a story about your first meeting with Slash, and then you used the term that a lot of people these days don't understand. You knew how to read the room, like I'm gonna, a lot of people don't get that term anymore. Learn how to read the room. Like, don't walk in guns a-blazing, and
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's especially, and you get this, I'm sure you see it all the time. It's like people who feel like they're entitled and they're like, dude, this is my, when you're at a venue or you're on the bus or whatever, this is your house, and it's like somebody marches into your living room and starts, acting all, not in the proper way. It's not cool. And I never, ever want to be that guy, Yeah. And so,
the thing I get with a lot of vendors, and I don't know how to say this without coming off as like I said, a prick, but
again, Bernie, not possible, buddy, not possible.
like You meet them once, and maybe they gave you, I don't know, a pack of strings. We'll say that, a pack of
Yeah.
strings or something.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, I'll check them out. And then, 2 years later, when you haven't heard from them or they haven't returned the initial email you sent them, then you're coming through their town and they're like, oh man, I need me and 5 guys.
Dude,
You
that
know,
is
can
the kiss
and
of death right there.
and like I know that when we spoke, like we kept in touch after NAM, a few texts, and I knew I was coming to Portland. You knew I was coming to
Yeah.
Portland. You sent me a text and it was already on my radar.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you, you didn't have to ask. Like you were already on my
Thanks,
radar.
man.
But which now we'll get to. I approached you at NAM because not because of your guitars, but because of your jewelry.
Thanks, man.
When did you start getting into the jewelry side of this thing?
Well, that was the thing when I was doing the Lost Wax casting
See?
here. There you go, buddy. The Scully star. That's right. I love it. That's a true testament. It's like, unless you just threw that on at the last minute, but you were wearing it when you came through town. So I was like, you know
Man,
what?
I haven't
That's
taken it
legit.
off.
That's legit.
I haven't taken it off.
I've always loved that stuff, like, rock and roll jewelry. And like I said, my buddy did these really, really cool caricature skull rings. And I had never done like the skull rings, but I'm having the knobs cast and stars and the picks and things like that. And I said, why not do a skull ring? It's all rock and roll. And, I, I want to create more of a lifestyle brand, and it's not just the guitars. And I think I even mentioned this to you when we got together, that I have a ton of people who follow my social media stuff, and there's only a small percentage of that number of people that are able to afford a guitar that's expensive like mine. Hell, I can't even afford my guitars, So I was like, and my business partner and buddy Steve Hall, he's like, man, people want to support you, but not everybody's going to be able to fork over the cash for a guitar. And so that's where we really started pouring some effort into doing the skull rings, the McScullies, as I like to call them. And it's the footprint is so much smaller. And you saw my little wax setup, and it's like, It's right there. It's like, you shoot the wax, you clean the wax, you send it down to the casting, my casting guy in LA. And, he sends it back, and then I'll solder up whatever it is, at the lightning bolt on the front, or, ace of spades, or a custom piece, or whatever. And I just enjoy it so much. And people are more willing to, fork over $350 for a skull ring or whatever, or a pendant, $100 for a pendant, So I love that stuff. And I keep thinking of more and more ways to expand it, and do different types of things that will resonate with people that they dig. And man, I tell you though, I'm sure, you look and there are a million different skull rings. Yeah. So what makes mine different? I don't know. I think the association with the guitar business, and that people really, seem to dig what I do. So they want to be a part of it, which is really cool, which is like you, man. And you came up to me and I was just blown away. And it's like, man, I was on your website, I was looking at the Scullies, and I wanted to talk to you first and see what you think. And yeah, I just appreciate that so much, man. It's just, I mean, even when somebody gets even as simple as a pendant, like you did. It's like you didn't hit me up, like, hey man, can you hook me up? You're like, you actually bought it. I'm like, dude, just call me. We're buddies. So,
no, like what I really like is I walked up to you. I asked you if you were with McSwain. You told me I am McSwain. And then you said, step aside, son. You're bothering the customer. No. I told you, I said, man, I wanted to come meet you because of your rings. I love your rings. Yeah. And I said, I want to buy one. I said, but I have these tiny hands, and your rings. And then you came back with like, I make a smaller one.
Yep.
And so I was like, let's do it here. Let's size it up. And yeah. I was so excited. I remember the people I was with. I went back and I was like, oh, I met the guy with the rings. And
that's hysterical. No, it's funny. I'm actually gonna format it into a smaller skull, because I have another buddy who's like, I can't play with it on, because I mean, they're burly, man. They're like,
Yeah.
it's like about an ounce and a half, troy ounce and a half of silver, so
Yeah.
they've got some weight. And my wife, Robin, wanted a smaller one. So I made a little bit of a smaller one, and that's, it's way more comfortable. And I'm just used to wearing big, huge, chunky skull
Yeah.
rings. So it's
So
like,
I have Robin's.
you have Robin size. You have the daintier size.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you.
you know what? No, I'll call it the more everyday active size. How's
All right.
that?
That's perfect. Perfect. Let's leave dainty, the word dainty
Yeah.
out of that. Well, man, your jewelry is really cool. You gave me a pic when I was at your shop.
Yeah.
One of your picks, and I'm a very nervous individual to begin with. So I'm going to tell you this: the next time I see you, that thing will probably be rubbed flat because I keep it in
Oh
my
man,
pocket and I just sit
I
there
love
and
it.
rub it. I rub
You know
it
what?
through the show.
Perfect.
It's
Well, you're getting the luck out of it. That's what it is. I infuse them with a huge amount of luck and calming energy. So
right on. Do you
that's
do you
cool.
ever get ideas from customers that say, "Hey, I like your jewelry, but can you do this? Can you do that?" And
Oh
when you
yeah.
do you ever say like, "No, that's I can't do that."
I've never had anything inappropriate or like offensive as a request. I've got a guy who I just sent a guitar to, who's just such a good dude, guy named David Eakins, and he was asking if I could do a specific kind of ring, and I'm like, let me wrap my head around it and see if I can do that. And so I think I can, but like, somebody will ask for like a customized thing. Like I think I showed you the dog paw that I had, that I did. Guys, like a complete canine lover, and I mean, I love my dogs. You met my dogs, and
Yeah.
we've lived for them. And so I did this little dog paw on the front, and it was kind of a one-off, So if somebody has an idea, yeah, man. I mean, like with anything, sky's the limit. I mean, it just depends on what they want. Like one of my buddies, who I've become actually pretty good friends with, Dave Dahl from Dave's Killer Bread. I mean, he's run out of fingers. He's bought so many rings from me. He's got a couple of guitars, a couple of rings, and he's a native Portland guy. And just a crazy story. I don't know if you know much about him, but he spent some time in federal prison, and
Yeah.
now he helps ex felons with getting back into society and getting work. And he's a good dude, man. He's intense. I mean, he is no joke, man. But
Yeah.
he asked for a couple, like a specific, like the American flag pick. Like he wears it all the time as a pendant. And I had that cast in white gold, So I mean, I cast in anything somebody wants. Just depends on what they want to spend. So yeah, I love the custom stuff. It challenges me and keeps things interesting.
Right on, man. And do you find yourself having to split your time between the jewelry and the guitars, or do you just do them at the same time? Like, are you constantly
I'm
simultaneously working on jewelry and guitars?
Yeah, I think it's both. I mean, like I'll try to, and I tried again with the whole trying to be perceptive of not being too pushy, even with social media. Like I had been posting every day, and now I'm to a couple times a week. But I don't want to turn people off and be like, oh, this guy's just trying to hawk his stuff, which I am. But I want to put up content that's engaging and still sell some skull rings. So normally, like if I'll post up some skull rings, I'll get a few orders from that. And that's always while I'm working on a guitar.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can take a couple hours work on the jewelry side of it. And then once that's done, switch back over to guitars. And it just kind of toggles back and forth. I think at Christmas, I want to say like a run of maybe 25 rings, so I had to dedicate some time to that, to get those out in time. But normally, I'll get a few here and there, and, I'll shoot them and shoot the wax and cast them, have my guy cast them down in Los Angeles and send them back up, and then I'll ship them back out. So
Right on,
yeah,
man.
it's fun. It's fun. It breaks it up because the guitar, I'm so on autopilot a lot of times because it's sort of the same basic path. You laminate the wood for the neck, you glue up the body, then you do the fretboard and you level the frets, so it's kind of a process. Whereas with the ring stuff, it's a little different, and it's still kind of new because I just started doing this maybe about a year and a half ago. So
Yeah. Well, I think your partner is correct, man. People want to support you, and also let's not, maybe it's not the fact that they can't spend what your guitars cost, but maybe they just don't play guitar, but
Agreed.
they want to be part of that brand because your brand is pretty cool, man. I
Thanks,
I
man.
wouldn't have I don't suffer bullshit, man. I'm not going to sit there and just to get a ring, you know.
Yeah,
I'm not
totally.
wearing it right now, but I've been wearing it every day since you gave it to
I
me.
love that, dude.
Um, I just took a shower and I'm on my way out. I will put it on, but it's it just it means a lot to me. That ring means a lot to me, and
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that.
I'll continue to wear it. But uh, I think that's what it is people like not just the fact that it's a cool ring, but it's there's not you don't have 300 of them sitting there just waiting to ship out. Because
Exactly.
my
Yeah. No,
first question to you was like, are they made to order? Like, do I have to wait? Because I said, do you have any here? And you're like,
yeah.
no, I make them as you order them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, and uh, that's the thing is like, I think it makes it a little more connected with people. It's
yeah,
like, instead of having a case full of, rings or whatever, it's like, this is specifically your size. And that's why it was cool when you came up. I was able to kind of size it a little bit for you. And, I mean, I love that, man. I love that personal one-on-one with people. I mean, it's always been that way with my guitars. And I feel like even with the rings, and especially the guitars, I build these friendships with people, and some are a little, you connect a little more on a personal level with people. But I think almost every single guitar I have made, or even the rings as of late, is like I build these little relationships with people. And I think that's what life's all about, man, because I think people are so caught up in the bullshit of social media these days that you
yeah,
just kind of lose that personal connection. And I
yeah,
just, it's fuel for me. I mean, I love that, and I mean, I have people from a broad spectrum of political beliefs and religious beliefs, and some people are completely diametrically opposed to what I am, which I find common ground with, and
yeah,
I love that. I mean, it's just
yeah,
cool. It's cool. Now, like you said, I don't suffer bullshit either.
yeah.
And if there is that, I just pivot and just kind of avoid it
Yeah,
altogether.
it's
So
not worth it. Well, you
no,
remind me a lot like I have a friend named Robin Arthur. She's an artist. You'd love her, but she's the same way. She paints people's pets, and she's
oh,
like,
no kidding.
by the time I'm done, she's like, I know these people. I know their pets. I know
Yeah.
what they like to do. I know where these people vacation because I ask so many questions because
Yeah,
I want to get every detail about that pet in the paint.
absolutely.
And the
That's so
pet is so
cool.
much part of the person, that it's got to reflect it all. And so
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
and so that's how I see your jewelry, man. Like I said,
Oh, thanks,
some people see a basic star with a skull on it, but
man.
this says McSwain all over
Oh,
it to
thanks,
me,
brother. I
man.
appreciate
You
that,
know,
man.
I
I
told you, I was like,
appreciate that.
man, quit posting shit. You're gonna make me go broke.
That's awesome, man. It's funny. Well, all right. So I have backed off a little. Maybe I'll start posting some more stuff just to poke and prod you a little bit.
Well, man, I appreciate your time.
Oh
I
man.
just want to say a few things. I'm like I said, I met you in April. I thought we hit it off, and I meet a lot of people, and I don't exchange information with a lot of people a lot. But one thing about you is I told you a little bit about me. I said, hey man, I have this podcast, and within a week, man, you were texting me going, dude, I love what you said here, and I love what you said there, and it means so much to me because you
Thanks,
watch
buddy.
how many people listen. We watch
Yeah.
this thing, my partner and I, every day, but when someone comes up and says, oh, this, then I know they've listened, and that means the world to us.
Well,
you
dude,
know
you're such a natural at this. And that's the thing is like I listen to podcasts all day, every day in the shop because it's just solitude, So, and I try to pull back from the news and the political bullshit that, everybody's so, tapped into. And it's just so refreshing, man. I wish you were doing it like at least a couple times a week, but I know you got a lot of plates in the air, but it's like you're such a natural interviewer, and it's just like a conversation. And the people that you have on, especially with how much I love this industry, and it like I think I can't remember who you were talking with, maybe Mark, I think, and you're talking about what a small network of people it is, and like you and I have overlap of people that we've known for years. And I love that you can sit down with those people and just get these great stories out of them, and kind of dig deep and get these honest conversations. And it's just great, man. So I wish you nothing but the best success. And I'm going to spread the word far and wide, buddy.
Well, thank you, man. It does. It means a lot to me, especially when I just get the random text from you going, "Oh, I'm listening to this one. This is hilarious." So I just wanted to let you know we talk about it a lot. Like it's very appreciated.
Awesome.
I don't want to overuse that word.
It's genuine, man. It's genuine.
Well, thank you, man.
Yeah.
Well, brother, I don't want to take any more of your time. I just want to thank you for your friendship. Thank you for the gift. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
I think the universe brought us together.
It totally does, man. And that has always been the case with my life, is like, whether it's, early in life and you have a year's friendship, or, people come in and come out, but most of the people that I've met throughout the course of my life that you really connect with are still, great friends. And so we're going to be having some good laughs long into life, buddy. I have a feeling. So
right on, man. Well, you know, the name of the podcast is Breakfast Included. If we were having breakfast, what would you have, buddy?
I've thought about this, because I have all the episodes I've listened to, and there's two answers to that. Depends on whether you want the Jekyll or the Hyde McSwain.
Let's have them both, man.
The Jekyll would be a green smoothie that Robin makes, and it's like a bright green spinach, mango, lime juice, mint, coconut water, ginger. It's real healthy, and it makes me feel great and awesome. And of course, with a oat milk latte. And then the Mr. Hyde would be a big plate of biscuits and gravy, and maybe some grits too, because I'm a good old redneck from North Carolina, so my roots are run deep. Robin kills me. She gets so mad. I'm like, I really want the biscuits and gravy. She's like, you don't need biscuits and gravy. I'm like, but I do.
She's just trying to keep you healthy, man.
Yeah, I know.
Well, brother, thank you for your time, man. I'll let you get back to work. Thanks for doing this.
Dude, thank you. I'm honored.
We'll talk soon.
All right, buddy. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. Stephen McSwain, McSwain Guitars. I told you he was a cool guy. I bet you feel like you've known him all your life too, don't you? Yeah, you do. You just don't want to say it. You're too cool to say it. You can find him on Instagram at McSwain Guitars, online, McSwainGuitars.com. Check him out. On another note, like I said, I'm in Atlanta right now. Today I got to have lunch with Al Marks, who was a guest on this show. We'd never met. We were just online. He holds these charity pick auctions, and I've sent him a bunch of picks. He's raised a lot of money for cancer, suicide prevention, etc. And I got to hang out with him. Al's a cool cat. If you haven't listened to his episode, listen to it. He's interesting. He's a former A&R guy, a road manager, and man, he accidentally recorded with Jimi Hendrix. And he tells that story on his episode. Check it out. Check them all out. Go back and listen to all of them, no matter how painful they may be. Also, you can check out our merch store, isbreakfast.bigcartel.com. I am out of here. Have a great day. And I'll talk to you next week. We'll talk some more. All right. Thanks. Bye.